Hello and welcome to another segment of Interviews That Matter. I'm your host Raj Mehta. And friends, in this segment, we bring those guests who influence our lives. This includes elected officials, policymakers, heads of major organizations, and other dignitaries. It is my sincere hope that the knowledge brought in by this guest will help our community. Today we have such guest, Senator Phil Boyle. Senator represents 4th Senate District in New York State. Let's meet Senator Boyle. Senator, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking time today.
I appreciate
it. So, Senator, let's go with your background, because you were an assemblyman before for the New York State, and then you, I guess, got an opportunity, or you wanted to be a senator. What was the what was the intention behind that?
Well, for New York State legislators, the state assembly where I served for 16 years over a 19-year period,
right,
is 150 members, and about 107 or 108 of them are Democrats,
right,
mostly from New York City. And I'm a Republican from Long Island, so it's very hard to get legislation passed or have a lot of influence as a Republican in the New York State Assembly. They say the place a Republican in New York State wants to go is the state Senate, because the Republicans have controlled that traditionally over the years.
Right.
Right now, we do not have a majority Republicans in the Senate. There's 63 state senators in New York. Only 30 of us are Republicans, so you'd think if all the Democrats got together, they would have the majority. However, there are 4 or 5 breakaway Democrats who side with us, if you will, to run in a majority coalition, a bipartisan coalition. I believe it's the only one in the country where Republicans and Democrats work together as a majority, a working majority in the state Senate. And so I have a lot more influence in that area and can get things done, so that's what I'm really enjoying.
Oh, okay. So that's how you became a senator. You wanted, so you're now having fun over there in Senate.
Well, you can do more. And the reason, Raj, the reason I got into the politics is to be able to help people, to be able to say, this person's very suffering, her family's having a difficult time, his family's having a difficult time, and whether it's through legislation or calling as an ombudsman with the state government to say, can we help these individuals? Usually you can, not always, but I can have a lot more influence to do just that, to help my constituents as a state senator.
Okay, so you serve right now 4th District?
4th Senate District, that's correct.
4th Senate District,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's start with your background. Why did you get into politics, and who was your mentor?
Yeah, well, I'm a Long Island guy. Grew up, born and raised here. As I describe it, I grew up in the middle of the middle class. My late father worked for Grumman on the assembly line for 34 years.
Okay.
And my mother was a school nurse teacher in Sayville, and she passed away a few years back. And but I was I have 2 older sisters. Went to public school, the whole 9 yards. But I always had a love of politics. Even though I wasn't a political family, it wasn't like my father was a politician, my mother was a politician. We liked to talk around the dinner table about current events. At that time, it was the Vietnam War. And so when I went to college, I went to first the State University of New York at Geneseo, and then transferred and ultimately graduated from University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, and majored in political science. Went on to law school, and then got a master's degree in public administration. After graduate school, I went down to Washington and I interned on Capitol Hill, and I got a job on Capitol Hill. So I was down there for about 5 or 6 years as a congressional staff person, including most recently I was the chief of staff for the former Congressman Rick Lazio from here on Long Island.
Right.
And that's when the seat in the New York State Assembly opened, and I ran for that. So I have a long career in politics, and my whole focus has been that way. And people say, well, you're a career politician. I am a lawyer in my other life, but sometimes career politician is not really a pejorative. It's someone who is a professional that knows the area. So when someone calls me, I usually know the answer on how to get something done.
Right.
If I don't, I know who to call to give you the answer.
That's the key, yeah.
And so much of that in government is doing just that, being able to find out what's the best way to get this bill passed, or to stop this bill from being passed, or to help this individual who has an insurance problem or a Department of Motor Vehicle problem. When you have that kind of experience, it makes it easier to get the job done.
I guess, it's important that, you may not know all the answers, but important to where the answers are.
Exactly, that's key.
That's the key, and that's what I tell my people in my business,
Yep.
that listen, I don't expect you to know everything,
Right.
but I expect you to know the answer where is.
That's right,
So
exactly.
good. So who was your mentor?
Well,
Who do you consider?
Yeah. There's a few. I'm from the town of Islip and a
Right.
Republican, and former Supervisor Pete McGowan played a role in my getting my first position. And our town Republican vice chair was a woman named Jeanette Messina, who passed a few years back. The best political mind I think I've ever seen in my life. She was phenomenal. She knew what cog went where and how it all fit together, and could give great political advice, and a wonderful, sweet person as well. So those, I think, were two of my political mentors. Political ally, Frank McKay, the chairman of the Independence Party in New York State, and on Long Island here. Frank and I are friends in and outside of politics, and we talk all the time about politics and strategies and things like that. So,
So 19 years in assembly, right? I mean,
yeah.
what do you think you have accomplished in 19 years? I mean, that's a long time, though.
It is.
Yeah.
I am able to pass a few bills as a minority member. They usually let the majority members take the idea.
Right.
But I think my ideas coming forward did play a role, even if it wasn't my name on the bill.
Right.
For example, it ran the gamut. I actually had the first legislation to bring Powerball here to New York State, the Mega Millions, that Powerball thing,
yes.
And I think it's raised millions of dollars for our educational system, and I'm glad that we did it. Other things to help individuals. For example, I had a bill that would require EMTs and ambulance workers to report suspected child abuse. So a lot of these things, I introduced the legislation, and then the Democrat would say, "Oh well, Phil, that's a good idea, but with your name on the sponsor, it's not going to get passed. So do you mind if I take it?" I said, "Absolutely. It's no pride of authorship, and that's one thing in politics that you can't say, I want to take credit for this. Let's get the bill passed and make life better for people. We don't need to get credit for it."
Well, not many people are like that.
Yeah, not in politics especially.
So I'm saying politician always wants to get a credit.
Yeah. Sometimes they take credit for things they didn't do. So,
Exactly. Yeah. So they, you basically worked like across the aisle, and
Absolutely.
people like.
Very important.
But now it's different in Senate, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
now it's a little different, I guess.
And in Raja, in the Senate now, you kind of have to, because we have that coalition. There's Republicans and Democrats. We need to get votes to pass a bill, and in the Senate, in the Assembly, for example, Sheldon Silver's a speaker there, and he just has to get 76 of his fellow Democrats to vote for this bill, and it's going to pass.
Right.
In the Senate, because it's so close number-wise, we need, there might be one bill that passes with a certain coalition of legislators, and the next bill that comes up, different people voting in favor of it to get it passed. Some people might oppose it that it supported the last one. A good example is Governor Cuomo now has this proposal, a women's equality agenda, which has 10 parts to it, and I think 9 of them almost everyone agrees with. It's the 10th on the pro-choice abortion issue that there's disparate positions on that, and it may not pass, but the other 9 do. So you might say, "Hey, Governor Cuomo, why don't we pass the 9 that we agree on, and we'll put that other one aside, and we'll discuss that later or something." Or
but both house has to pass the bill, right?
Both they have to pass the exact same bill. That's every T has to be the same, every I has to be the same for it to become law, and then it goes to the governor for signature.
Right. So how do you think this governor is doing now?
I have a lot of respect for Governor Cuomo. I have not agreed with him on everything. I think I disagree with the recent gun legislation. But his first 2 years in office, I was a big fan. Fiscally conservative. He was, in my mind, he was actually acting like a Republican. Didn't like to spend a lot of money, lowered taxes, more business friendly. I think now maybe if he's got his eye on the White House, perhaps, he might be shifting a little bit to the left and more liberal policies. And where I'm having more concerns about some of his issues now. But I think he can get back to where he was. I think he's a born leader, whether you agree with him or not agree with him, he gets things passed that no one else could. So I'm going to reserve judgment for the rest of his tenure and see how he does.
Yeah, because like he's the governor that he has passed his budgets on time.
3 in a row.
For 3 in a row, which is really credible in New York State history.
Absolutely.
Right. So and on top of that, he has made some tough decisions. About pensions and about real estate taxes and all that. Do you agree on those?
I do. I think that I don't. As I say, I don't agree with every one of his proposals, but I agree with his fiscal conservatism. I respect the fact that he's led 3 budgets on time for the first time in 30 years, and the fact that he's put the 2% tax cap in. I support and other fiscally conservative ideas that he's come upon. I think, as I say, some with the social issues, he might be playing to another base that he's looking for the White House or whatever he's doing. If it's just his reason, he's shifting a little bit to the left for my liking lately, and I hope he's going to come back.
But it's 2020 actually.
Exactly.
Still like 7 years away or whatever.
Well, not
What are you
really. I
gonna
mean,
do?
he could. If Hillary Clinton doesn't run, he could run for president in 2016.
16?
Exactly.
You think so?
I think so.
Against Chris Christie?
It may be. That would be a great race. I'm interested to see. I think even he acknowledges if Hillary Clinton announces she's going to run for president, then he's going to have to take a step back.
Right.
But if she says no, I don't feel like it, then I think Cuomo's going to be all in. His father, they called Hamlet on the Hudson. They couldn't make a decision whether he wanted to run or not. I haven't had any conversation with him. I don't know him that well, but I think that he'll be all in to run for president if she doesn't run.
Wow, interesting.
It would be
That'll be interesting.
It will be.
Okay, so now, in your district, what are the major issues? Like taxes is the major issue, correct?
Absolutely.
All over Long Island, actually.
Without a doubt.
And the highest number of taxes we pay in the country.
Yeah.
Energy cost is also very high,
Without a doubt.
and obviously, as also, as an issue.
Yep.
What do you think? What do you plan to do? About all these issues? Yeah.
Well, one of the things that when I first ran for office in 1994,
Right.
I made the promise or that I would support the idea of no spending increases beyond the rate of inflation for our government.
Okay.
And if we had passed that and done that at the time, we would not be in the budget crisis we are right now in New York State. We would have the most solid budget in the United States. But unfortunately, governors and legislatures over the years, Republicans and Democrat governors, have increased spending in New York State 3, 4, 5 times the rate of inflation sometimes. You just cannot sustain that. You can't sustain that in your house, and you can't sustain that on the government level. So we're trying to dial it back, and you're absolutely right, Raj. Taxes are the number one issue.
Right.
90% of the people, you ask the question, it's property taxes.
It's a property tax.
And everyone wants adequately funded schools and want to have our kids have a good education, but we pay the highest per student costs, and we're not number one in terms of educational credit. So I think, and I give an example. My sister, I have 2 sisters that both live in North Carolina, and one just purchased a house, as did my wife and I. I pay about the similar houses. Mine's a little bit nicer, but it's about the same house. I pay $17,000 a year in property taxes.
Right.
My sister pays $3,600.
Wow.
Good
Big
schools, beautiful neighborhoods down there, and that's why we're not going to be competitive. And the governor, to his credit, has acknowledged that. We cannot continue to be the number 1 tax state in the union and succeed. That's why people are all leaving. And we need to roll that back, and the way you lower taxes is to lower spending so we don't have any expenses.
Do you think that lower taxes or lowering the taxes is really going to happen? It can happen.
Well, he had the leadership to put the tax cap in.
Cap?
So yeah,
Right.
and I would like to see him get rolled back, but the cap is a good start. And I was impressed with the fact that in all of the school districts on Long Island, only a few of them pierced the cap. So people are still thinking 2% with a little bit of an exemption, maybe 3%. It's not the 7, 8, 9% that we saw in years past. Because if the school boards try and bring that up, for the most part, they're getting voted down.
See, I was, on the school board committee, right? I was in one of the technology committee for school board, our school board, Port Washington.
Right.
And, the majority of the budget for the school budget goes into a fixed cost, which is pension, salary, benefits. That's it.
Right.
Like 80% majority goes in there.
Right.
And we always have a question that, we have very little money left to do anything that we want to do.
Right.
With that said, the pension reform is the key thing. Without that, really nothing is going to happen.
Yeah.
I believe. So, do you agree with governor's pension reform or whatever he's trying to do or what he wants to do?
Yeah, I supported the Tier 6, the new tier, to lower the benefits that are put out for new employees. The problem is our New York State Constitution protects pensions.
Right.
So if you start working at a job and you have a pension, then they can't change it after that. That's the deal you made when you took this position.
Right.
But for new hires, and now every year we're going to have people retiring and new people coming in. They're under a new pension system where it's not going to be as generous. And I think the governor said that it's going to save tens of billions of dollars over the course of 30 years. And the problem is it's going to take a little while to start making those big savings.
Exactly. It's going to take a long time before we see any saving, number one.
Yeah.
And until then, we have to keep paying all the huge, anyway, right? And of course, it's going to be there.
Yeah.
And school districts has like they always have a carrot. We don't have money, so we can't do this and we can't do this. So it's like parents are always in between.
Right. But the school districts now, they have been able to stay within their caps, for the most part. I think this past go-around, 7 school districts tried to pierce the cap out of the 100 and plus on Long Island, and only one of them passed that pierced the cap. So I think all the school boards realize now the voters are watching. They need to stay within the cap. So the school board members, they need to make tough decisions about what they're going to cut. I mean, 2 of the school districts in my area closed schools. Haven't seen that done in a long time, and obviously laid off teachers, but they are lowering their costs, but it's a tough decisions to make.
See, what I'm thinking is because we have, our company has done, the first shared government services portal in the country, right? So basically, sharing all the things that, cooperative purchasing. I mean, if the school districts, everybody needs the same thing, right? So why can't they share these resources? And on top of that, also you have like superintendent and so many assistant superintendent and so many secretaries and administrative staff, and I mean it's a huge cost.
Absolutely. And I think shared services are the way to go. I know the governor has a proposal to try and get consolidation of school districts. And unfortunately, I think the typical Long Island mindset is that I don't want to consolidate with the school district next to mine. If the parents grew up in that town, hey, those guys, they're our arch rivals. There's no way we're going to join forces with them. But they can have shared services. And Raj, I commend you on the portal. Superintendents, you can't have 5 or 6 assistant superintendents all making 6 figures. Look at New York City school districts. They got one superintendent, a couple other ones, and they have 1 million students. So I think that we're going to be looking to make big efforts in terms of consolidating services, insurance, toilet paper, whatever. You can always buy it cheaper when you buy more of it. So we're going to be able to do that.
How, who can play a role in like cutting down this kind of a cost, like duplication of services, or so many superintendents, you don't need all these things, right? Who, like it government, is there a state government?
Well, that's actually can be done at the local level in terms of school board, because you have candidates for school board, and if you're running for a school board, you want to say you want to lower your taxes in there, just run for school board and say, hey, we have 5 assistant superintendents making X number of dollars. If I get in there, we'll have 2. I mean, and I'll save $1 million right off the bat. So the school board makes those decisions. And the state government, we like to have more local control and have the school board make these decisions. So candidates, more fiscally conservative candidates, need to get elected. And I think we saw that in the past election too. A lot of the tax pack, if you will, or the more conservative candidates were the ones that won election this past time. Not every time, but for the most part. And I think you'll see more and more of that.
We'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Interviews That Matter. I'm your host Raj Mehta. We are having a conversation with Senator Phil Boyle. Senator, welcome back, sir.
Thank you, Raj.
Okay. Now let's talk about jobs, right? Jobs is the most important thing. We've gone through a terrible recession, 2008, and now at least we are recovering. Wall Street is also giving good signals here, and Long Island also jobs is another big issue. How can Senate or you as a senator help create more jobs in Long Island?
Well, one of the things I noticed in a recent Newsday article that Long Island's doing fairly well with bringing jobs back, but they're not high-paying jobs like they used to be. A lot of them are food and service industry, so the numbers are there, but the actual incomes are not going to be able to maintain, including the taxes we were talking about earlier. You can't have a house with $8,000, $9,000 a year property taxes when you're working at McDonald's. You might have a job, but you're not making that kind of money. So one of the things that I've always focused on is for state government to be business friendly and to realize those very concerns, to try and lower spending so we can lower the taxes and energy costs. Energy costs is a huge thing. Raj, as you know, as a business owner here on Long Island, the energy costs on Long Island are, if not the highest, among the highest in the nation.
Right.
And
Right.
part of that gets to our power situation, whether it's Shoreham and the over the course of the years that we've had with power companies and LoCo. But we can lower rates. And one of the things that I'd like to see is us getting some of the cheaper energy that they have in upstate New York, the hydropower that we have not had access to.
Right.
A couple years ago, Governor Cuomo talked about having an energy highway that went from upstate to downstate. The problem is there's a bottleneck there in Westchester County and by the city because you need wires, you need lines, and no one wants to have it go through their backyard.
Right,
But
right.
he's working on that, and I fully support him in his efforts to try and find a transmission system to bring cheaper power to Long Island to make to lower the cost of business and living on Long Island.
Now, in Long Island, as you know, that we've got so many different associations, and everybody is trying to do their own thing.
Right.
And LIA is supposed to be the umbrella organization or so-called more powerful
Right.
association. Now, what do you think of Kevin Lowe? What kind of a job he's doing? And number one is, can he be able to like put everybody under one umbrella and show as one Long Island?
Right, right. Well, I think you're right. I think we need to market Long Island as one entity to the rest of the country and the world, actually,
Yes.
to bring people. Kevin is a professional. He has a great experience in terms of his background, and I commend him for his efforts. But there are other groups, and there'll always be another individual who wants to start his own organization, but that just spreads out the message. The LIA has got to take some tough leadership spots. For example, on the LIPA question, what are we going to do with LIPA? Obviously, their performance or lack of performance in the recent Hurricane Sandy, a lot of people want to get rid of them and shrink them down. I think that the governor's proposal has some very good points to it. He wants to shrink LIPA down to a holding company in essence, and then have another power company, PSE&G from New Jersey, come in. PSE&G has a great track record in New Jersey. I hope it's going to be the case when they come here to Long Island. But the LIA needs to step forward and say, this is what we want to see. Because a lot of people, whenever you're going to make a big change to an energy company, they're going to the business community. And Kevin and the LIA are being asked mostly about that. They've been kind of quiet so far. We're looking for more input on it.
Oh, okay. The PSE&G taking over LIPA is also, there is a criticism about that's non-New York company or something like that.
Yeah, well, I think at this point in time, understand it's not like a hot dog stand where you can have lots of people doing it. There's not too many energy companies overall, and if they are a qualified, a good, competent company that can provide well-priced energy for Long Island, I don't care if they're from New Jersey.
Okay, okay. Accelerate Long Island, right? That also run by Mark Lesko, and he's also trying to kind of get startups, help startup companies and all that. But when I see, if you want to start up companies, right? Startup company needs all the infrastructure, and the cost. Obviously, cost is more important because money is not. All they're depending on is the the funding. Do you think that is really going to be successful? Like, I mean, I know we got a lot of good engineers and we got good talent here.
Yeah. Well,
but until we fix the infrastructure or cost down,
that's the key. Lowering the cost is no matter what group you have or what short-term help you're going to get. Because what we're seeing is, and you probably know this, Raj. A lot of these business incubators that we're starting, companies they start doing okay, start getting some revenue, and then they move. I mean, if we can't keep them here in the long term, we're going nowhere.
Exactly.
And that's what I've advocated for Excel and for the LIA to say, help us with, as you say, the basics, the infrastructure, whether it's energy needs, whether it's taxes, and other, just personnel costs, to be able to have a small company grow that can afford to stay here on Long Island without making the next step and then say, it's actually cheaper for us to go work in North Carolina or Colorado someplace. That's really the key for our long-term survival here on Long Island.
How do you prevent them from happening? I mean, it's crazy.
Tough decisions, and I'm hopeful that I know that the governor's proposal on LIPA, he says we're going to have a rate freeze for 3 years. That would be helpful, but we need to change the mindset. And I think that property tax cap is important for that, because one of the when I talk to business owners in my district all the time, and outside the district on Long Island, a lot of them say, we're doing a chart and we see that our taxes are here. Well, 10 years from now, we want to have a good company, a bigger company, and our taxes are going to be here. We can't afford that. Or our energy costs, at the rate they're growing, are going to be here. We can't afford that. So with the tax cap in place and others, to say, okay, we're going to have a small growth. We can afford to live here and stay here and keep our workforce here. That's key. And energy costs are part of that equation.
The viewers of our show is mostly from South Asia, people from South Asia. Okay, so now what is your thinking about this South Asian? Because the population is increasing. You know, South Asian population in Long Island has really grown tremendously, and it's going to increase because a lot of people come to Queens and then they move to Long Island. Right. So, what are your thoughts about the community?
I'm a big fan, and I commend the South Asian community for the entrepreneurial spirit they brought to the United States. I think I'm probably one of the few legislators in Albany that have been to India. I traveled there, and when I was younger, for 6 weeks I went by myself around India, to Pakistan and some other places in the region. And so I was blown away at the beauty of the country and the culture. And I'm glad to see that that culture's come here. And I think that working with individuals from the community, that we can make them successful. But as you know, Raj, same issues as everyone else here. Wherever you're from in the world, you come here, energy, taxes. That's the key. That's the key.
Yep. Where Phil Boyle will go in 2 years or 5 years, let's say.
I think I'm happy in the state Senate.
You're happy in the state Senate?
Yeah.
No ambition right now? Or you have ambition, but you don't want to say?
We'll take a look. I'll tell you one thing. I will never run for governor. I do not like raising money. I don't know how they do it, raising millions of dollars. I mean, I hate to call people up and say, hey, can you contribute $50 to my campaign? I can't imagine getting on the phone and asking for millions. So I don't see myself going statewide. I think either here, I've always thought about Congress, and I had the opportunity to run a number of years ago.
Right.
But I'll take a look. But I am very happy. I'm loving my job right now.
If you get an opportunity, obviously, right? Window of opportunity.
Right.
Kind of thing. Then it's different.
Exactly.
Yeah. This year, the election in Nassau County is going to be very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Right. There will be, Tom Swazi,
yes,
incumbent, running first primary with Adam Haber.
Yep.
And whoever wins will go against Mangano. What is your prediction?
My prediction is that Mangano wins re-election. I think that both Democrats, Haber and Swazi, are formidable. But I think they're going to have quite the primary. But I think that Mangano has done a good job of keeping costs down, running the county government. So my prediction is that he's going to win, and I think that's generally what I hear out there. I live in Suffolk, but I got a lot of friends that live in Nassau, and that's their general thinking. I'm interested to see who wins the primary between Swazi and Haber. That's going to be an interesting part.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like Swazi is an incumbent; he's got a lot of experience running the county, and Adam Haber is said, okay, let's have a fresh start or something like that.
Right.
So his message is that basically, right?
Yeah.
So, do you think that he will be able to, the voters is catching his message or experience?
I think Haber wins the primary. I think that a lot of people want to see fresh blood, and they've had Swazi, and for the reasons that he lost. Again, I'm not a Democratic primary voter in Suffolk County, Nassau County, so it's not my vote that counts.
Right.
I'm interested to see. I would bet a little bit of money that Mangano's going to win in November, but I wouldn't bet on that primary.
Interesting time.
Yeah,
basically.
absolutely.
Interesting time. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Raj.
Thank you for joining us today. That's all the time we have. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, you can email me at rajamitv@gmail.com. That's again rajamitv@gmail.com. You can also watch our prior shows at youtube.com/Infosys International. Again, that's youtube.com/Infosys International. Until next week, have a great week. Thank you.
Thank you.